Good evening, everyone. Sorry I'm a little bit late. There was, as always, technical issues with logging back into the Facebook Live, but yeah, that's the only reason why I'm late. So this evening, as I said this afternoon, I'm going to talk about in detail, and I'm going to use a lot of photos this evening about questions that people, I think, have not potentially wanted to ask me, or perhaps they just didn't know how to come across, bringing the subject matter up, and things that I personally have also maybe tried to hide from friends or family, whether through embarrassment or certain things I just don't want my family to know that I have to struggle through certain things. But I think it could be really beneficial to people who are there and may wanted to raise the question, or they may have friends or family who are paralyzed, or in the future they may meet someone who's paralyzed, and it's just a way of educating people, but it's also a way of me just being able to let people know what life is like as someone who's paralyzed. And as I say, I'm going to use quite a lot of photos because it's really easy for me to then sort of illustrate what it's actually really like. So I have got a list of questions which I personally thought of, and I've actually asked the residents here and the staff to just think of questions that they wanted to ask me, or have wondered what things are like for me. So before I start, so the first picture I'm going to put up, it things just really makes a really good point. So for example, so if someone asks you what it's like to be paralyzed, this picture really sort of illustrates it well, in terms of, oh well, the inability to move is what you see, but in reality the things that actually you don't see, for example, is loss of body temperature and regulation. So I can't feel when my legs go cold or they're hot, and my brain isn't then able to regulate that body temperature. I don't have use of my bladder or bowel, so it's one of the questions I'm going to go into more detail with. Mental health challenges, as I've talked in detail about, the problems that I've struggled with, loss of touch and sensation. So again, I'm going to go into graphic detail with that. Loss of sexual function, which I'm going to discuss. Digestive health issues. I have to take a tablet to help my bowel movement when I eat. So there's things with your food digesting. Breathing difficulties. It's not something I particularly struggle with, but it is something that some people who are paralyzed have, and likewise cardiovascular issues. Pressure sores. I've been very fortunate to only have a couple of pressure sores in the 7.5 years I've been paralyzed, but they are something that can be very, very harmful, can be really, really irritating. If you get one on your bum, naturally I sit down all the time in bed, I'm on my bum all the time, so they can take a long time to heal. Infection risks. If I had a pound for every urine infection that I've had, I would be a very wealthy man. It's just my immune system as well. Even here in the ministry, I've already caught a cold quite easily, and so my immune system is particularly weak. Spasms. I suffer very badly with spasms, and they're just make your legs sort of shake. Almost looks like you're doing the river dance, but makes your legs jump and shake. I was just talking to one of the residents here just about 10 minutes ago, because my spasms are really, really bad, especially on a night, and they can almost make me feel like I'm going to get thrown out my chair. And yeah, on the flip side, I remember coming out of hospital when I first had my accident, and my legs were shaking, spasming, and one of my cousins, Bobby, I don't know if he'll remember this, but he was sat and he just went, "I've just seen your legs move. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just having a gag." And for someone who doesn't know, and the lads who've seen me here, they'll have seen my legs jumping loads, and I'm positive they've thought, "Hang on a second, why are his legs moving?" But they don't want to ask me because they may feel, don't want to embarrass him, or just so. Yeah, that's my legs, and it's almost as if my brain is sending a message through my spinal cord, and the message is getting blocked, but it's not. It's part of the message is still getting through, which is part of the reason why my legs still spasm, and pain. I suffer. Just take that off now. I suffer tremendously with neuropathic pain here. Now that's why I was on such a huge dose of gabapentin. However, I've come off the gabapentin and the pain is identical. So it's just something I've got to live with. I suffer with very, very bad, uncomfortable back pain, but it just comes with the territory of being paralyzed. So so that picture was really, really good. So I'm just going to go through the questions I have written down. So bowels and bladder. For me, the bladder issue is something I really, really struggle with. If someone said to me you could ably walk again, but you'd still have bladder and bowel issues, or you can stay paralyzed and get your bladder and bowel back, naturally everyone would say, oh, well, you'd want to walk again. I would have to think about it really hard and really, really think about it, because the bladder, not having use of your bladder is really difficult. And I did initially, when I became paralyzed, used to do intermittent catheters, which is where you enter a catheter into the top of your penis and it drains your bladder for you. Now, the thing with that is, though, you have to maintain your own time management with that. So then you empty your bladder every between 2 and 4 hours, depending on the intake of liquid you take. Now, if you don't monitor that, you'll just end up having an accident. Now, I've had numerous accidents, and it just becomes extremely stressful. You're constantly feeling to see if you've had an accident, which doesn't look the greatest, especially if you're a male, to be feeling in that region. And it just put me on edge. If I was ever out with friends, if I had a beer, it would just, that would accelerate the bit. I'm sure many men will understand breaking the seal, where if you used to have a drink, when you break the seal, you then drink, you go into the toilet all the time. So I've had many urine issues. Now, I currently, though, however, due to a hand injury recently, I can't actually use intermittent catheters. So I have an indwelling one, which is where the catheter is still inserted into the top of my penis, and it's actually attached to a bag that I have, which I drain every sort of 3 to 4 hours still, and I change regularly just for cleanliness and for being clean. Now, I actually was taken into hospital when I came here to have my bladder scanned recently, in a kidney scan, and I was told by the hospital that I was now eligible health-wise for something called it's I can't think of the medical terms because I've just stumped myself, but basically it's a catheter that comes actually out of just above your pubic area. They put a small interpubic catheter, I think it's called. Don't quote me on that, but it's a pubic catheter basically. But anyway, it's a small incision into that area, and then they put the tube into your bladder, and it comes out of your stomach. But it doesn't require a bag. It prevents you from leaking. It's really discreet, and it's just got a valve on the end of it that you open and close, so it can be hidden inside your boxer shorts, and you can still wear shorts, you can still go swimming. There's no bag of tent needed, and it's just such a much easier way of living. Now, especially if you're in a relationship, at the minute if I was in a relationship, sexually wise, I've got an indwelling catheter going in to the top of my penis, so it's supposed from someone my age as well. I am, at the age where I still would be regularly in a relationship where I would be wanting to be sexually active, so that's quite difficult if I was still in that position. But thankfully, due to the fact that I've been off drugs and alcohol now for nearly 6 months, it's allowed my bladder to repair itself quite a lot. And when I had my scan, the hospital have said that I'm now health-wise eligible for a suprapubic catheter. I knew I'd get there in the end. So which is amazing for me. It means I won't have to have a bag on anymore, and and it also means if I do ever get in a relationship in later life, it's a lot less awkward. And it's a bit of a blessing that I'm really, really pleased about. In terms of my bowels, now, I will warn everybody, sorry, I should have said this at the start, this was probably going to be quite a longer episode just for me explaining everything and the pictures, so I'll just get that in there to start with. With my bowels, when I first was in hospital, anyone who becomes paralyzed, you normally get given a suppository which you insert into your bottom, and then you sit and wait. Usually, it takes between an hour and sometimes can be an hour and a half on the toilet for your bowels to then move. Now, I was doing that quite every day. I was doing that for the first few months, and then I met a friend in hospital, and he told me about something called Q4, which is what I now do. And the best way to describe it is like it's almost like having a colonic irrigation, and you only do it every 2 to 3 days, which is again a blessing compared to every day. And it takes about 25 minutes rather than an hour and a half. So for me to explain it without being too graphic, is you insert a tube up your bum, and then the tube has a balloon attached to it, which you can inflate with the system that they give you with it. Now that stops. Then with that, you can actually then insert so through the tube warm water, and you can fill your whole bowel with warm water. Then you can release, sort of deflate the balloon, and then remove the tube, and then over the next sort of 15 minutes, your whole bowel will empty. And it's actually very healthy, and it just means that you're not going to the toilet every day for starters, which is easier for anyone in my position. It takes a lot less time. You're not being on the toilet for an hour and a half, and it's a lot healthier and cleaner. So I do that. Now, one of the questions Pastor asked me today was, have you ever been anywhere where A, you can't get into a toilet to do your catheter or drain it, and B, same likewise with toilets with regards to my bowels? Yes, I have many times. It's extremely stressful. A friend of mine, I worked in a pub, and it's an old pub, so the building wasn't wheelchair friendly at all, and I couldn't get into the toilet, and this has happened many times. And what I've had to do is normally just say, has anyone got a bottle? Or in some cases, it's a bit vile, but I've had to just say, can I have a pint glass? Drain my catheter into the pint glass or the bottle, then take that, or get someone to take it into the toilet to pour it into the toilet, and then throw the bottle away. Obviously, wash the glass out. Maybe in some cases, throw the glass out. So you've just got to kind of think on your feet. But it is quite stressful. And same with my bowels. I can't tell them to stop. So I have, when I first had my accident, I have, admittedly, and I suppose it's a little bit embarrassing, but I can't control it, I had bowel accidents, only 2, thankfully, touch wood, and it was more just what I'd eaten. I think I'd had a curry, and then I'd eaten something really rich, which I should have then thought my bowels might move a little bit quicker than the 2 to 3 days. And so then if I now monitor what I eat, I know sometimes just for safety precautions, I'll go after 1 day just to clear my bladder of something like, and then anyone who's had a curry or hot curry, they know can sometimes go straight through you. So I'm no different in that sense. And it can be stressful because I need to be, most toilets I will go to have to be within a certain distance of the tap so I can use the system that I use. So before I ever go anywhere, I'll always make sure the toilets are suitable. Now, when I came here, the toilets were actually really difficult, and the same with the shower. But I was so adamant that this was the best place for me in terms of my recovery that I was willing to, when I first came here, just have cold showers sat on the toilet, just cover myself in shower gel. It took a long time, and use cold water with a clean towel. Thankfully now the centre is put in a bath chair or a shower chair for me. They've sorted a shower out for me in the interim while they're actually going to then get a wet room. And again, with the toilet, there's been a couple of issues with the toilets here which have just been broken. I've had to come and use, then just think quickly, I've had to come and use the toilet here in the office. So it is a little bit stressful, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles, and you've just got to get on with it. And I remember at the time my accident, I was so adamant in terms of speeding my recovery up that I just thought, I don't want to sit and dwell on these things. This is my life now. I can't change it. If I sit and cry and get upset for weeks, at the end of that period, I'm still going to be in the same situation. So, I appreciate it is difficult for people who can't maybe have that mindset. But for me, it was a case of just get on with it, Andy. And that's the way it is. So next question I've put in was, my sexual function, and I did touch on this in a previous video briefly, but can I have sex? Yes, I can. Not everyone who's paralyzed or tetraplegic or quadriplegic can have sex and can still get an erection. Luckily for me, I can. I told a story about a nurse that after my accident, she saw I had an erection in front of her for the first time, which allowed me to know that I was still alive and kicking, as they say. So it was really positive for me. But I will be honest, I was chatting to someone earlier that I don't have the sensory feel of having sex anymore in that region, and I can't ejaculate. So if I was to ever have children, I would have it through IVF. So it is different, and in terms of the feeling, it's hard. I can't explain it. From my level of paralysis, which is sort of here upwards, I get a very strong sensation when I'm having sex. So it's not like I feel nothing. So there is still some sensory sort of enjoyment, but obviously nothing compared to what it was like before. Don't get me wrong. But I can ultimately still have an erection at my age. I'm 36. I'm 37 in a few weeks. So I've been in sexual relationships since my accident, and I'd like to think in later life I will continue to do that. So I know people who've been in my position who can't, unfortunately, get an erection though, and so I can understand how that could be very difficult for people. But what I would encourage, and well, for me anyway, is in that these are the kind of questions which I'm sure people would like to ask or like to know, and I can probably guarantee you there's friends who are very close friends of mine and even family members who I've never told that to until today. And it's not that I wasn't like I didn't want to, but they've never came for me to ask me, because I'm sure they thought I wouldn't want to talk about it. But I'm fine talking about it, and if it can be educational to other people now listening, and for same, if it's helping anyone who's paralyzed, just to let them know about alternative bowel options and things of that nature, then that's great. I do, when I was in a relationship, took a tablet called Cialis, which it's similar to Viagra. Viagra allows you to have an erection within sort of half an hour of taking it, where Cialis means that in the moment of sexual interaction, where it be kissing or anything, you through your thoughts can then still regain an erection, or through feel. However, I have not been in a sexual activity and then gain an erection in awkward positions, in awkward situations where I'm just lying on the sofa and I've rolled over and my brain's not telling me I'm doing anything, but I've gained an erection. So until I'm in a sexual relationship with somebody, I've stopped taking that tablet for obvious reasons. But yeah, you've just got to make light of the situation. I do anyway, and it helps me. The next question I've had was, how did I end up in the chair? Now, a lot of people have asked me this, and a lot of people, though, however, wonder, was he born like that? How did he end up in the chair? I don't want to upset him. Like, I'll just not ask him. For me, please, nobody can ever not ask me anything. But if you ever see someone who's in a chair, I'd like to think a lot of people wouldn't mind. So it can sometimes break the ice. I know when I had my accident, a lot of people said, wanted to come and ask. We didn't know what to expect coming at the hospital. We were prepared ourselves to not upset you. And I was just me. I was upbeat, bubbly, and they said it made things so much easier. So yeah, I had a bike crash. I'm just going to put a couple of pictures up there. So this was me on my bike. So yeah, I had a bike crash in 2015, and I'll just get rid of that. So yeah, I think everybody knows from my previous videos, I went around a corner, I was hit by a car, a head-on collision, and again I'll just put, so this was me in hospital. This is me just come out of intensive care, so I'm still pretty banged up, and that was a week after the accident. And again, this was my spine after the repair to my spine, and the operation that I in turn went to Thailand to get the procedure that I got. And for anyone who was asking, I should have put this up previously, but this is what my x-rays now look like. So on the left there that looks a bit like an iPod is the battery for the stimulator that I use, and the wires going up attached to my spinal cord, which allow my signals when I've got it on to allow me to still go through and bypass the level of paralysis. Now, it also kills my spasms, which is the most valuable thing in the world for me, that I can kill my spasms with the use of my stimulator. And yeah, just a lot of people ask me what the lump on the side of my back is, which is the battery for the stimulator. So the picture there is a really good illustration of what it's like. And this was me just starting my recovery. So this was the first time I was in rehab after my accident, the first time I was really in a chair. I think a lot of people know that I was extremely fit before my accident. So yeah, I did a lot of football, mixed martial arts, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and sport was very much my life. And I remember actually when I was in hospital, one of my best friends, his mum, asked me, she said I was a bit of a hero to a lot of my friends, and she asked me if I had any heroes growing up. Now, my two heroes were these two men here, one being Gaza and the other being Ricky Hatton, and his mum somehow managed to get in contact with their agents, I think. So Gaza sent me a picture onto my phone saying, here's a picture of me this weekend, sending me all his best, which was amazing to receive. And then I got a signed program of his last fight, and this is actually a photograph, a framed photograph from Ricky Hatton to say to Andrew, get well soon. Now, he is just fought the weekend and he's my sporting hero, so that was amazing for me to get, and I was so grateful of my friend, his mum, doing that for me. So yeah, so that's how I ended up in my chair. So next question, which was a great question actually, was how difficult was it for me and how difficult is it still for me not being able to do my sports, and how did I get over that? So as everyone knows, I was mad keen on, or if anyone who's just watching tonight for the first time, I was mad keen on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I actually got asked back to my club, and I got given an honorary black belt here by my coach Speedy, who I've been with since day one. And at this point, actually, I didn't ever think I was going to go back to doing jiu-jitsu again. And then after a while, I thought about it, and then I decided that I would go back. And this is me at a grading with my coach Speedy, and again at a grading here with him, and it was the most amazing thing that I can now still go, and I still train. Just before I came here, I was training, and I can go. And at first, I thought I'd be the elephant in the room, but it's not like that at all. It's the opposite. When I roll, the lads I roll with, they tie a belt around their legs, so they don't use their legs. So it's a fair fight, so to speak. And they say I'm bringing a lot of things to the table because they're now training and they're having to think differently in terms of defense and attacking because they can't use their limbs like I can't. So for me, it's a fair fight, but they say I'm not just the elephant in the corner who can't do anything. I'm bringing things for them, and they're learning and I'm learning, and it's the biggest passion I've had sporting wise. So it means I can do the passion which I thought I was going to lose. I can do it for the rest of my life. My coach Speedy and I, who have the most amazing relationship, and his wife Ritu and his kids at the club, I've grown up with them, and it's nice that I can go back and do it with them. In terms of how I feel though, I will be honest, one of my best friends again, Jamie, this was me and him training I fought against a lad who was the current British champion at the time, and Jamie and he lived with me for a while. He was my training partner, and we just went through my whole jiu-jitsu career with him up until my accident. This was me, Speedy and Jamie together at grading for me. So Jamie recently got his black belt, and I could not have been happier. And I'll be honest though, I cried my eyes out when I saw the picture of him, found out he got his black belt, because it just hit home the fact that he's progressed and I obviously naturally haven't progressed. Now it is sad for me, however, at the same time, it was just, I was so proud of him, but it made me, and it's the same when I watch the UFC. I'm such an avid UFC fan. Playing football, I played football for Middlesbrough when I was younger, and then I've played at Wembley Stadium. I've played, I used to play all the time. So not being able to play football, the only thing that I sometimes say is I was only ever going to get fatter and slower. So I might have done myself a favour. But now my nephew's come along and he's mad at football. It is quite difficult not being able to play and not being able to sort of like play football with him in the garden. And if I have my own kids, that is sort of going to be something I struggle with, but I also have to just be grateful that I can still do certain sports. So for me, I do wheelchair rugby, which is great. And I haven't been there for a while, admittedly, due to a hand injury, but that's fantastic. I did rock climbing with some friends here, so they carried me up to the top of the wall, and then I just scaled down the wall, and then they moved me to a different part of the wall, and then I just scaled down the wall. So again, it was really cool. I got some looks when I walked in, thinking, "What's he doing here in a wheelchair?" And then they saw, and people were thinking, "Wow." So if anyone else thinks, you're paralyzed, you never go hard rock climbing again, beg to differ. You can. There's a way around anything if you think about it. And again, hand cycling. So my friends all chipped in extremely kindly and got me this hand cycle. It's great for fitness, and it's just something I was really grateful for. I hadn't been able to use it, and admittedly didn't use it during recent times due to my drug addiction, and my fitness and everything went down the drain. But yeah, that's something that I do. Admittedly, again, I used to play snooker a lot with my dad, and I used to play golf with my dad. That was our thing. Me and my dad played golf and snooker all the time, and it was really difficult. But again, I started to play golf again with one hand, and I play snooker with my dad. And I play pool here with the lads. So it's not the same, but at the same time, it's a case of at least I can still do it. And I plan on, when I leave here, my older brother's taking up golf, which is amazing, because now my dad and my older brother and my little brother as well, we can all still now do something where I felt for a lot of years, really, I never voiced it because I didn't want to upset my family. Me saying that I'm gutted about it, it's never going to change it. But thankfully now, it means when I can leave here, I can still take up golf with my dad and my brother, and we can do things like go on golf weekends or do things. And it's amazing because it just gives me loads of things to look forward to, and I can still have that relationship with my family, and especially my dad. So yeah, those are the things in terms of sporting sort of aspects of my life. Next question was, and it was up there, having no sensory. So having no sensory in my legs is difficult, and it's my own fault in certain cases, but I will warn you there's going to be some graphic photos here. So basically for me, the biggest thing I've struggled with is burns, hot water burns especially. So this was just simply from me being in the bath and my leg, I leaning back in the bath, and then my leg went under the hot water tap, and I couldn't feel the hot water, and it was just burning my knee. And then I lifted my eyes up, could have been 90 seconds, a minute later, 2 minutes, I can't remember, but my knee ended up having a huge blister on it, and it takes a lot longer for my legs to heal due to the lack of blood getting pumped through my legs. Again, I'll warn people, there's more graphic photos in terms of burns. So this was really frustratingly a picture where I had someone coming over to my place, and I don't drink tea or coffee, never have, and I made them a cup of tea. Now I lifted the kettle off where I boiled the kettle, and I didn't think that the bottom of the kettle would be hot, and I put the bottom of the kettle, I don't drink tea or coffee, and I stupidly put it on my leg, and I wheeled really slowly because I thought I didn't want the water to come out the top of the kettle and burn me. But what I was ultimately doing was just burning a hole in my leg. I got to the other side of the kitchen, lifted the kettle off, and there, I thought that was the result. And again, so this was a couple of days later, and yeah, so I had to, in the end, unfortunately, get a skin graft. So I had to take a skin graft from where the white area is and put it over the burn on my leg to help it recover. Now, I think that's the last. Yeah. So that's unfortunately been something I've struggled with. But admittedly, I was sometimes very naive, and I didn't really, take care of myself too well in those times. And recently, don't get me wrong, even just recently, I just got a tiny burn on my toe, because it's difficult when you're in the bath and you're relaxing, you lean back, and I don't know where my feet are moving, and sometimes they may just creep under the hot tap. And I know she'll be watching, and it drives my mum insane, to the point where she gets really angry with me, and because I'm a son, and she hates to see the burns on my legs. But unfortunately, again, it's the way things are. So I would encourage anyone who's recently paralyzed or knows anyone, just try and warn them that hot water can be a real bad thing when you're in our position. And yeah, those things have happened to me in the past, and I'd like to think it will be the last, but I think I'd be lying if I thought that would be the reality. So that's the situation with my sensation in my legs. The next question was, can I still drive? Yeah, it was one of the first things I wanted to do. My dad encouraged me for my independence, not having to rely on lifts, and also on the other side, you don't think about it in yourself, but relying on family. My mum and dad, the amount of times they've had to come through to see me for certain things where I couldn't drive, and we said, imagine if, when I've been injured, for example, but imagine if I didn't drive whatsoever. It would be so difficult, and I can only empathise with families for anyone who's in my position who can't drive, because it must be so difficult. But for me, luckily, I've had some through the Motability scheme, which I've talked about. I've had a couple of Motability cars, which again, I'm really grateful that I love cars. So I've had, just for example, 2 really nice cars which have hand controls on them. And then again, a friend here this evening just asked, how do I get in the car? So for me, I can't show you, but I'll transfer into the front seat, and then I'll take the cushion off and put it in the footsill of the passenger seat. I'll take one wheel off my wheelchair, put it behind me into the passenger seat, turn the chair around, take the other wheel off, put that behind me. I'll fold the backrest of the chair down, and then I'll lift the whole frame across my body into the passenger seat. And then when I get out, it's just reverse, chair out, first wheel on, second wheel on, cushion on, transfer back. Now, that sounds probably quite simple. The first time I did it, it took me about 8 minutes. Now, if it's raining, that's pretty difficult. I can now do it in about 40 seconds. So, it does become easier for anyone who's recently paralysed and doesn't, or is going to start driving and they've not done it before. However, if it's raining, it can be very annoying, and the same with if it's icy, it can be frustrating. And also it can be quite problematic if you do what I've done probably at least a dozen times, where a friend, I've driven to see them, and they've gone, I'll just put your chair in the boot. They've put it in the boot, we've gone out in the car, we've been out, and I've dropped them back off at home, and then they forgot to get the chair out the boot, and I've driven off, and then I go to get home, and then I can't get out the car to go and get the chair out the boot. So I thought, and then I'll have to either drive to a supermarket, drive to McDonald's, or luckily I used to live near a care home, so I'd ring the care home and say, hi, it's Andy, and I've been a numpty again and driven off and left the chair in the boot, can you come and get it for me? And anyone is going to help you, but it's just one of those things where I drive away and I think, no. So yeah, just a heads up for anyone who starts to drive, and just remember, if you've got any friends or family in the passenger seat, that they bring the chair back and they put it back for you. But yeah, so driving for me is amazing, gives me the independence. I love cars, and it's great. So yeah, that was answer that question. A great question which I brought up myself is, and I'm going to put loads of photos on because you'll understand why, is difficulty thinking about having kids and raising kids if you become paralysed. In terms of, for me, I thought I had such an amazing upbringing and relationship with my dad when I grew up, to the point where I used to think, oh no, I won't be the same for me if I have kids, on holiday in the swimming pool, throwing your children and playing sports with them and things of that nature. And I used to think, it'll not be the same for me and my nephew. Now, I'm going to put these photos up, but my nephew could not have made it any better for me from the start. He is obsessed with my wheelchair. He's made it so, I'm just going to keep putting these up and speaking over the top of them, but he made it so good. So this was me coming back from Thailand. I hadn't seen him for 4 months, and as soon as he saw me, he's running, and it was a great picture that I think my sister-in-law, my mum got it, but just to see how excited he was to come and jump in my arms, it's amazing. My sister-in-law actually says, so this was me at a jiu-jitsu competition. He come and supported me. My sister-in-law says that even now he's his dad's his hero, and he's a daddy's boy, but apart from that, with me, he's now nearly 9, and when I see him he still comes and runs and jumps and wants to be in the chair, and he still asks for a wheelchair for his Christmas and birthday. My sister-in-law says he's not even like that with her anymore, and apart from his dad, I'm the only person. So really, I don't know if I'd ever have still had that relationship if I wasn't paralyzed. So sometimes I think actually it's a positive of being paralyzed, the fact that I can still I can still have this sort of relationship with him. So going to his passing when he finished nursery, so again, just moments that I thought, oh, I'll not have the relationship. So on his birthday, again, he's a little bit older, but still obsessed with jumping on me in my chair at the hairdressers, both of us together. And as you can see, the smile on his face and the smile on my face is amazing. Now, in particular, this is hilarious, really, because I was at my mum and dad's here, and I'm looking after Charlie, believe it or not, here, and he's got in my chair and wheeled away. Now, he's seen me in Thailand. So he's seen me doing my walking in Thailand when I was in Thailand. So he said, oh, look, come on, I've seen you walking. Come on, Uncle Andy, come and get me. And I'm like, whoa, I can't walk. Come back, bring the chair. And he thinks it's a game, so off he goes. Now, I'm meant to be looking after him, and he's then now wheeling around the house on his own, and I can't get up to get him. Now, naturally, he just brought the chair back, but it's hilarious that the fact that I'm in charge of him, and now he's done off with my chair. So, yeah, things like that. But again, for me, this is amazing. This is a spare wheelchair that I used to have, and in my mum's kitchen, we'll race around the kitchen. So it's things like that for me is just priceless. That I wouldn't maybe have that relationship if I wasn't in a chair. Now, again, this is just recently. Now he's getting a bit older and stuff, but we still have such an amazing bond, to the point where finally, this was just the weekend before I came here, so he's still sit on my knee. We still fly around in my chair together. He's always pulling wheelies in it, and that's so. In terms of me thinking, my relationship with him would be different, and if I have kids, I'm sure there's other people who are out there who may become paralyzed, or think, I wonder what it's going to be like if I ever have kids. Well, for me, it's been amazing that I know going forward that I can still have an amazing relationship with my nephew, for starters, but children my own one day, and it's just made things so much easier for me personally. The last question two more questions I had. First one is, in terms of sporting events, what's it like being in crowds? Well, again, because I now go and sit in the disability area of sporting events, it's actually easier to get tickets, believe it or not, and you get better seating usually, unless you pay through the end to get front row tickets. So I was able to go to Wembley recently and see Sunderland play with one of my best friends, which was amazing for me, despite Sunderland getting beat. Shock horror. And then again, I got to go to the UFC with my brothers. They actually took me out of the hospital here, surprised me, and we went to go and see the UFC. And I also went to the Anthony Joshua Klitschko fight at Wembley, which I did have a photo of, but I forgot to put it on there, with one of my best friends again. So, and I plan on going to, I've been to sort of stand-up comedy and stuff. So a lot of the time you have to ring up and book your tickets over the phone rather than online. But, you know, I still go to a lot of sporting events. And in terms of the sort of related, I suppose, someone once said, what's it like flying? So if I fly, normally I'll get taken onto the airplane. No, first of all, sorry, you have to ring up rather than book your tickets online, and you have to give ask for usually assistance, wheelchair assistance in the airport. Now that means you don't queue, you go straight through immigration, you go straight through passport control, and it's just way quicker. So every cloud, as I say, and you go onto the plane first. Now you'll get transferred onto an aisle seat, which is really thin, so you can get through the aisles, and then you just get taken to your chair first. I have had a few strange situations, one of which I was meant to be in an aisle chair, and I said to the lady, it was just a flight to London, and I said to the lady, if I jump into the window, whoever's in the window won't have to then actually physically climb over my body because I can't get out to let her in. And the lady said, oh, I'm sure it'll be fine. And I explained that scenario to the lady who was meant to be in the window, and she accused me of lying, and that if I desperately wanted the window, she could just have it. And I just, said, really, do you think I have makeup? I'm paralysed. I have a window seat for a 40-minute flight. And she just quite rudely said, oh, if you want it that badly, just have it. I'm not interested. Now, by the grace of God, what are the chances 2 or 3 people coming down the aisle on the plane was a man I used to work with. And the company I worked for bought me one of my very first wheelchairs, and he said he hadn't seen me, so he said, oh, hi Andy, great to see you, and how's the wheelchair? So I very loudly said, oh, the wheelchair that I use. And as you can imagine, the lady who accused me of lying, because as you see me now, if you saw me now sat in this chair, you probably wouldn't, to look at me, wouldn't think paralysed. I don't have it tattooed on my forehead, but she was, and her face just dropped. So I thought to myself, if she apologises, I'll let it go. Cut long story short, she didn't, and I just made it apparent when she got up to walk away. So she was very, very rude. Let's just say maybe he's put it a little bit more apparent than that. But yeah, and it's also happened to me again on a plane. So those are a couple of things that have happened. But I still have one of my best friends, which I mentioned before, is a DJ. So this was us in Ibiza, just maybe a year before my accident, and I never thought I'd be able to go back there again due to the crowds and stuff. But I went back there for my little brother's 30th. We took him back in my chair, and again, I've been with friends quite a few times, and to my mum's dismay, I was actually crowd surfed in a club by a bunch of random Italians who wanted to lift me up. So I was crowd surfed in my chair, and although a lot of the times when I've been there, I've been under the influence, I do genuinely love the music, and as I say, my bestest friends is a DJ, so I do in the future hope that I can go there and I know that I'll have the strength, and it's not going to be tomorrow or next year, probably the year after, but one day I'll be able to go there and enjoy it for just the music and the island. And I was just given so much love when I was there, and given the disabled access key, and never paid to get in any of the clubs. So it's something that I thought, again, which I love of mine and passion, I thought I'd never get, I was able to continue to do. So that's basically it. I just hope this episode was could educate and help people understand what it's like to be paralyzed, and if you do know anybody, or you find out someone's paralyzed, these are the kind of questions, and you may share this video to hopefully just give them some knowledge and things that could hopefully help them. And yeah, those are a bit of a sort of a real insight into what it's been like for me since I've become paralyzed. And that's it for this evening. Again, I know it's ran on a little bit longer. The next week, I'm planning on doing a testimony with one of the guys here, and we've talked about it previously. So it's going to be someone who's got a different story to mine, but it can reach a wider audience that I can't reach, and that's the purpose of it. And it's an extremely powerful story. It almost had me in tears listening to it, and I know it'll help a huge amount of people out there. So that'll be next week's episode. So thanks everyone, as always, for all the love and support, and all the love and support I have here. I'm so blessed to be here, and I just want to thank everyone for the love and support, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.